All right, what's up guys? Ben here bringing you another video today. We're going to continue a little bit of a series here, breaking down some of the teams that we've had semi-confirmed over the last couple of days. We're going to dive in on Toronto today, talk about the roster and the substitute that they have, talk a little bit about, where they struggled last season. Are they going to improve this year with the personnel? Make a few predictions. I have a couple other points I want to make about this team, so let's dive in and discuss. So Jacob Hale of DeSerto tweeted on Friday that sources confirmed to him that Standy and Scrappy are going to join Kleenex and Insight. The assumption here is that Hicks would then remain as sub on this team. So that would be your 5 going next season. We haven't gotten announced yet from Toronto, but all the rumors I have heard that kind of confirmed the same. So let's talk a little bit about this potential team here. The best way to really contextualize this team is to really talk about where they struggled last year after a really good season in Cold War. Toronto really did not reach the same highs last year consistently all season. Their biggest limiter was their inability to really win hard points. They were near the bottom of the league in hard point win percentage. Here's the ranking of teams if you're curious. Obviously, it does not include Pro-Am, but the only team that was worse than Ultra in win percentage was the Paris Legion, so not great company. And they really only figured out hardpoint at one event last year. That was at stage 3. That was obviously the event that they hosted in Toronto. You can see their S&D was also very good at that event. We look at stage 4 and champs at the end of the season. They continue to struggle on hardpoint. In fact, the S&D, they went 0-4 at champs, which is not great. So I think a lot of the changes on this team are trying to really catch up to some of the other teams like an Optic or a FaZe or a Thieves in terms of hardpoint prowess, and then kind of keep that S&D mindset going forward. Another area of struggle though for Toronto as well, and even kind of this continues on to the hardpoint piece, was their real major inability to win game 1 in some of these series. You can see by their win percentage by game, like they were a very good S&D squad all year. They were actually winning a majority of their controls as well. In the back end of that, those stats are not too bad. It's really the game 1 though. I mean, you're handicapping yourself so hard if you don't win that game 1. You pretty much have to win the game 2 or you're in a reverse sweep situation. So let's see how this new roster stacks up in terms of improving their overall hardpoint game. So I think the biggest thing for me taking a look at the 5 players here, and obviously this is on the assumption that Hicksy is going to go ahead and start the season on the bench, is I think there's a little bit more speed with the sort of Scrappy Standy trio as opposed to Bance, Kleenex, and Cammy. We obviously know what Scrappy did at Pro and what he did in that one substitute appearance. I think the guy has the ability to slay at an elite level. Obviously, new game coming up, so we'll see what he can do. But he looks like he's got the full talent, and I like his grit, and we'll get to that in a minute. Standy's kind of an interesting player. I don't think he had a particularly good season last year. I'll be candid with you. Was great in S&D. I thought in the beginning of the season was the top 5 S&D player in the game. But obviously, Minnesota also had their struggles in hardpoint, and Standy never really looked like he was sort of on page with the rest of the team on what they wanted to do, and his numbers really show in hardpoint near the bottom of the league in some of those statistics. I think the thing you do get with Standy though that'll be a better pair with Kleenex is aggression, right? Bance and Cammy are a little bit more methodical players. I would say Cammy definitely when he gets in that takeover mode is a little bit more aggressive, but Bance definitely is going to play a little bit more kind of at pace, play corners. I kind of like sort of Standy's a little bit more speed play style. I think it will pair well with Toby, aka Kleenex. The other thing I think I like about this team too, we go back towards the sort of second statement I made at the beginning of this video, right? They want to continue being a good S&D squad. This Toronto team the last 2 years has been up there. I think all of these players are very good S&D players, which will really help because I think that's going to be a difference maker as all these teams are starting to improve their respawn. We get to kind of the beginning and the ends of the season, S&D becomes super important in those games 2 and 5. And so I think this team kind of continue that going. I'm curious who's going to run bomb with the squad, or they'll do it by committee because there's no sort of obvious candidate to me standing out. Control might be a little bit interesting with the squad. Obviously, we don't yet though know if control will be the 3rd game mode, so we should probably put a pin in that. But I think in terms of overall respawn prowess, this team has maybe a little more firepower than their team last year. My question though with this team is the loss of Bance, I think, is definitely a huge leadership blow to this team. I think that's going to put a lot on the shoulders of Insight. We'll see if Scrappy, sort of being a rookie and sort of having that kind of edge, maybe steps a little bit into that role. I think the other question mark for me when we talk about Toronto is the MarkyB situation. Mark tweeted at the end of August that he's currently contracted to Toronto, but he's exploring other options. From what I've heard, it looks like he may be going to either New York or LAG. So right now there's a massive vacancy at Toronto in terms of a head coach position. Toronto do have Mayhem as sort of a strategy coach and Flux sitting around. So I wonder if maybe Mayhem will spot into the head coach role, but I've sort of heard that some of these sort of other free agent coaching candidates or people looking to change jobs are kind of floating around. This is basically your list here of potential coach options. And I'm very curious to see what happens. I think JP would be a good grab for Toronto, but that's more in a sort of secondary coach role. I think if you're looking at main coaches here, it's either going to be Troy, aka Sender, who's obviously had some good success with the Optic organization. D-Real, who I think his time in New York has been kind of mixed. And Sam Phoenix had a good season. I'd be very surprised if he left the Seattle squad, but I've heard his name linked to this Toronto position. That would be an interesting fit to me, so we'll see if that's how that goes down. So yeah, one to watch with Toronto, because I think that Mark brought a lot from being an ex-player and vibes, and there's just this Toronto camp's going to have a different feel now, it seems like, with a lot of sort of outgoings of both players and potential coaches. Okay, so where do I think this Toronto team ranks relative to other teams? To me, I think maybe they've gotten definitely a little bit better in respawn. The difficulty for me with the Toronto team is I feel like the Minnesota squad has gotten a little bit better. If Optic rounds back into form, if Seattle plays well obviously no FaZe will be there or thereabouts, same with Thieves. I think once again with this Toronto squad, you're probably looking at yourself being a top 4 or top 6 squad, unless Scrappy comes in and gives you that sort of rookie performance, rookie of the year performance. Obviously you can see a rebound season from Standy, that would really help. Otherwise, this team might be sort of an interesting sort of mid-pack team that might kind of really be in the mix. But my kind of concern with Toronto is like, does this team still then have the respawn power to beat your kind of FaZes and Optics of the world? And I'm not totally convinced on that on paper. Obviously, we'll see how things play out in the regular season. But I think for Toronto, look, obviously you gave that original camp a run. You had some really good moments in Cold War. They pretty much held off making a roster change on that team last season. Like, from my understanding, there were multiple points during the season in which roster changes were discussed, and the org let the players stick because that's what they wanted to do. They had their trust in the team, and they didn't play the worst last year, but they definitely could not win hard points at the level needed to go ahead and win some of these events. So I think this change was necessary, but we'll see where this Toronto team nets out, sort of sealing the floor. I think they are going to make champs, but in terms of being like a top tier team, I don't see it right now, but you never know. So I think overall this Toronto team to me is probably top 4, top 6. Could they crack in that kind of top 3 championship contender S tier conversation? It's possible. I don't think anyone saw that Toronto team after they dropped Zin cracking in that category, nor I think people saw Seattle at points this year. So I think it's definitely doable for Toronto. This is going to be a squad to watch, and I think for me too, if they struggle, we'll see how quickly they bring in Hixie into this squad. I think another kind of situation for Toronto to watch too as well is what happens with Insight in his contract situation. He was obviously heavily linked to join Atlanta FaZe at one point during this Rostermania, but it didn't seem like he was going to leave. I would assume Toronto then wants to lock him up to a multi-year deal. We'll see if Jamie feels the same. He might actually let his contract run out and then test free agency. So one to monitor over the next couple of months as we wait for news around this roster to filter in. Well, that's it, guys. Let me know what you think of this Toronto team. Where do you think they rank overall to other teams that we've heard in the CDL so far this season? Do you like the moves? Do you think they should have kept Cammy and Bance? Do you think they should have run it back one more time? Who would you like to coach the team if MarkyB is not coming back? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. As always, if you like the content, smash that like button. We're pumping out a lot of content, so make sure you subscribe to my channel for more videos. And as always, guys, we'll see you in the next one.